Joanna DeVos, estate planning attorney. We've talked a lot about the financial impact of having an estate and an estate plan, but there's an additional medical side to this that is equally important, right?
I even think, can be even, dare I say, almost more important, because everybody is going to have to face some sort of decision about their health care and how they want to be treated if they're in a situation where they're dying. And so, yes, that would be a yes to the answer to your question. So I think it's very important to do planning for healthcare decisions. And so you've got to have those documents in place, like an advanced healthcare directive, where you would name a medical power of attorney that's going to make decisions for your health care if you're not able to do so for yourself. You need, and advanced healthcare directives are pretty easy to obtain, and this is, usually I don't advise getting do-it-yourself documents or things you can download from the internet, but I really think that there is, for this particular document, advanced healthcare directives, you can get it from your health insurance provider. You can get one from you can get one off the internet from the Secretary of State's office. Actually, that's very functional. I just worry about people not having that particular document in place because it is so critical. You don't want other people making decisions for you if you are faced with a life-threatening illness or something, or an accident that's happened and you can't make those decisions. You want to have that done well in advance. So that's kind of my little
So we're talking about decisions as impactful as pulling the plug, and
right.
Everything else that would be less
right.
impactful, right?
Yes.
That sounds like something you want in place.
You definitely do. And if you, let's say you do, get one from your health insurance provider and fill it out. I've often reviewed those. I like clients will come to me and I'm preparing their trust and their will and their power of attorney for financial decisions. They'll say, I have this advanced healthcare directive. I filled it out at my doctor's office. They asked me if I had one. I didn't. I had to go in for surgery and I had to fill this out. Is this right? Is this all I need? And I'll review that and make sure that it is complete and is comprehensive enough. Because there are some, situations where you might want to have, some additional information in there. And really, it's such a personal decisions about, what you want to have happen. And we all know, we've all heard of the Terry Schiavo case, and we all sort of don't want to be in that position. And we sort of think, well, that can't happen to me. Well, why couldn't it happen to you? If we sort of remember that on the one side, you got her husband who said, well, I know her wishes. She wanted, she didn't want to live. She wanted, in this situation, she'd want the plug pulled. And her parents, on the other hand, saying, oh, no, our daughter, and she would have wanted to be kept alive by this artificial life support. And, it winds up in court and in the public eye for years fighting over this. And you say, well, that can't happen. Yes, it can, because it's just a simple thing. Had she had an advanced healthcare directive, those questions would have been answered. There wouldn't have been any court. There wouldn't have been any, nothing would have been in the public eye.
We're talking to Joanna DeVos, estate planning attorney. Her website, estateplanningSD.com. That's the website, estateplanningSD.com. And a lot of people talk about reviewing of your estate plan, and I can't imagine anybody does this every 3 to 5 years.
No.
How often are these things supposed to be reviewed?
Well, they are supposed to, that's kind of a good gauge, 3 to 5 years. I would say for my older clients, maybe we're talking if they're in their 70s, 80s, maybe every 1 to 2 years, because there could be potential for life changes and just it happens with aging. But most people think it is it's a set and forget, and they put it up on their shelf and it's sitting up there collecting dust. Their trust is up there, all their documents, and then time goes by, life goes on, and they don't revisit it until something happens. Someone got sick. Well, we got to dust that off, and now, oh wow. A lot of these people that we named in this document, we don't want them to be, we don't want our son to be trustee anymore. We don't want Dave to be trustee anymore. We've wised up on that, but it's decisions it's decisions that, because life changes, our lives change. So we need to keep our documents up to date to reflect those changes. And you should have your documents reviewed every 3 to 5 years, or sometimes every 2 to 3 years. And if you haven't had them looked at in a while, there's been some changes over the past 5 years, and I'm happy to do trust reviews and estate plan reviews for my clients and just make recommendations, and then sort of say, hey, this is what I recommend that you do, and to get it up to date, to make sure that your wishes are carried out and that they're current. So that's something I do quite often.
So someone could grab a hold of their trust and bring it into you, or even scan and email it to you for a glance over, just to make sure that this advanced health directive that you were so.
All of the documents, not just that one. I mean, when I do an estate plan review, it just involves, they would bring their, whatever documents they have had prepared. Maybe it's one, maybe they had the advanced healthcare directive, maybe they had a trust that's 20 years old and it's falling apart and was stuck in the basement, you know.
Well, that actually brings up another point, right? Let's just say that a family goes through the trouble getting a trust, and they pass away, and the family knows that there's a trust somewhere, or they suspect there's a trust somewhere, but they can't put their hands on it. Is there some place that it's recorded that there's a trust under the name?
That's a good question, but no, typically trusts are not recorded. One of the benefits of having a trust is that it's a private document. You don't, unlike probate, which is public, where everybody can come search you out and you can get your, second cousin twice removed coming to look for a handout because you died. It's not public record, and so we don't record trusts. However, it's advisable, if you are setting up your trust, that your trustee knows where to find your trust documents when you die, that they would have that information. Does this happen all the time in practice? No. I typically keep an electronic file of my client's estate plan, but then, as long as I'm in practice, I'll have that. And as long as the heirs know that I'm the attorney, they can contact me.
I think that's the missing link right there.
It's tough. You need to make sure that those things, or those instructions, are laid out. And so I think, I just would advise clients that, look, whoever you're naming as trustee needs to know where to locate these. If you're keeping it in a safe, if you're keeping it at if you have a safe deposit box at a bank where all your documents are, they need to know where that is so that they can access it at the right time.
So, in a real estate situation, often the title is held in a trust.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked earlier about this with Jim Hagan, about the fact that lenders won't generally loan to a trust, they'll have to loan to an individual. So there's the taking it out of the trust and then possibly sometimes not putting it back in the trust.
I had a story about that. I had a client last year, end of last year, who came to me and said, my dad died, I'm the trustee of his trust, and he had 2 properties, one of which was in the middle of a refi, did not get put back into the trust, died before it completed. So that was kind of but there is the good news, the happy ending of the story is, because his father had a trust prepared, it gave instructions for it. He authorized his son, who's trustee in the trust, to be able to go to court and say, look, Dad intended this to go into the trust. He died before it was able to do it. It was, all of his other assets were in the trust, and so the court authorized the transfer of that house back into the trust.
Yeah, they could see that it made sense.
Yeah, and that actually is fairly common that happens. So luckily he didn't have to go through a full-blown probate of that house. He still had to go to court, but see, that's another reason to make sure you have your documents up to date, because it's a good time to buy a home. You're buying a new house. If you have a trust, put that house in your trust. Or maybe you've got houses that you don't own property anymore. Just make sure things are up to date and things are protected. You're spending all this money to buy, it's for your family, for your loved ones. You want to make sure those things are protected properly.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Joanna DeVos. She is an estate planning attorney with estateplanningSD.com. Her direct line, because we won't be able to answer all the questions that you might have or that we have actually on the air right now, call her at 619-829-9559. She'll take the call, review your trust, or actually start one for you. 619-829-9559.
Yeah, go out and get your advanced healthcare directive in place. That sounds pretty important. One way or another, figure it out, get that in place. The website, estateplanningSD.com. That's the website, estateplanningSD.com.